Non-commissioned officers in the United States Army have a lot of different roles, and you might be curious as to what specifically does a squad leader do. And that's what we're going to be breaking down in today's video, which starts right now. Now, I want to try to keep this kind of generic to any MOS. Sure, there's going to be very specific things that a squad leader does if you're in the infantry compared to if you're a squad leader as an 88 Mike, as a motor transportation operator, compared to being an engineer, compared to being this or that or whatever. There's a ton of different possibilities based on MOS, but there are some things that are basic to just simply being a squad leader. That's what I want to focus on for this video. I want to focus on what's common. That way this isn't focused on just infantry, just, support, just, these individuals, whatever. Every squad leader is going to most likely have this task that they have to do. That way you know what to expect. Now, starting the bare bones, right? What is a squad leader? Well, that sometimes depends on the type of platoon that they're in, but nonetheless, usually a squad leader has several soldiers that they're in charge of, right? They're under their belt, the people they're responsible for, and that could be anywhere from maybe 3 soldiers to maybe like 10 soldiers. The numbers are going to really fluctuate based on the size of the platoon, the type of unit they're in, all sorts of other factors. But those are pretty common kind of range, and there can be other ranges too. But usually a low kind of number might be 3, and a high number might be like 10 or 11 or so, and maybe somewhere in the middle is more the average. But there's a lot of different scenarios that could possibly kind of change those numbers. In my examples, usually it was around 5 to 10. I don't think I ever had any kind of environment where like my squad leader or me being a squad leader was anything like low, like 3, but it could happen. My common ones are usually like 5 to 10. Part of that responsibility for having those soldiers is accountability. That squad leader is going to have to know where his people are at, where his soldiers are at or her soldiers are at, whatever the case is, right? But they're going to need to know where those soldiers are at. That is especially going to be key in the morning, because in the morning before you start physical fitness, right, the common thing you're going to be doing is that accountability. You're going to be in formation, most likely at 6:30. They're going to get accountability and they want to know where everybody's at. The platoon sergeant usually is kind of, finding out from the squad leaders, hey, do you have accountability of all your people? And if somebody is not here, where are they? Because sometimes things can be going on, maybe they're on mission, maybe they're at sick call, which means they're going to see the medics, or something else going on. But if they are not there and they're supposed to be there, then that's usually what is called being out of ranks. If the soldier is out of ranks, that's a bad thing. But that squad leader has to know where all of those individuals are at. If they're there, if they're at an appointment, if they're on a mission, if they're out of ranks, whatever the case is, and they got to report back to that platoon sergeant, their status. That's going to go for other times too, right? Their platoon sergeant needs to know, hey, where's private so-and-so, whatever the case is. That squad leader needs to know where they're at. Oh, they're over here working in the motor pool. They're at an appointment. They're at this or whatever. Because if the squad leader gives an answer of, I don't know where they're at, then that's bad. They should know where they're at. I mean, if it's like a thing where like they're supposed to be here, but they're not there and I don't know where they're at, that's different. But if there's like, I don't know, then you can possibly have some issues. So accountability is usually a key thing that, squad leaders got to maintain, of knowing where their soldiers are at. Another pretty common thing with squad leaders, but also NCOs in general, is leading physical fitness. In the morning, it might be common that you do like, platoon physical fitness or platoon PT. Maybe it's squad PT. Maybe you break off into different groups. A lot of units may do it differently depending on, how they would like to conduct physical fitness, but it's pretty common that a squad leader at some point is going to have to lead physical fitness. Especially like when it's platoon PT. You're doing PT with the whole entire platoon. They may kind of rotate through the different squad leaders to say, hey, so-and-so is going to be, running PT today, so-and-so is going to be running PT tomorrow, and kind of alternate through all the different squad leaders, because at some point they're going to be the ones conducting physical fitness. So you usually have to come up with like a physical fitness plan. What are we going to do? Are we going to go for a run? Are we going to go and do some exercises? Usually has to be in line with some kind of plan that they've been implementing throughout the week. Because if like the squad leader the previous day took everybody on a 6-mile run, and then you're just going to be lazy and be like, I guess we'll do a 6-mile run, kind of lazy and not kind of in the flow of planning to rest certain muscle groups and not cause any injuries to soldiers. So you usually got to have some kind of a plan. Usually you'll know ahead of time, hey, Tuesday this squad leader is going to be conducting PT, and come up with a plan, right? What are we going to do? Sometimes, yeah, it ends up being a let's wing it kind of a thing, but when it's well done. It's usually planned out of who's going to be given PT. That way they have some time to create some kind of plan for what they're going to be doing for physical fitness that day. Another very common one is counseling. That's basically just a documentation that says, either what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, all sorts of kind of scenarios that can be utilized with counseling. A common one you hear about is when someone gets in trouble, right? Someone gets in trouble, then they do a counseling statement on that individual to outline what they did wrong and what the corrective actions are that they need to do to correct whatever it was that they did wrong type of thing. But there's also like good counselings as well. You're gonna have what's known as monthly counselings. You have like an initial one, and then like every month, soldiers that are E4 and below should be getting a monthly counseling to let them know how they're doing, what they need to improve on, what they're doing great at, some kind of pathway to, doing better and getting promoted and all that kind of stuff. That is usually done by the squad leader. The squad leader will have to type all that stuff out and get on a computer, print it all off, and then, sit down with that soldier one-on-one, talk with them, let them read over everything, have that discussion, have them sign it, and then keep track of all the previous months of counselings. Especially like if a soldier is going to be like getting ready to go to like the promotion board or whatever, they might want to see, hey, I want to see the last 3 counselings, the last 6 counselings, whatever, for their monthly counselings to see how this soldier has been doing over the last several months. So that squad leader is going to have to maintain that. You're going to have other instances where maybe the squad leader gets to push it off to another NCO, and that kind of depends on the structure of the platoon. Good example of that was like my last role. I was a section sergeant, which was kind of like a squad leader, just the way our platoon was kind of made up. We didn't really have squad leaders, we had section sergeants, and then the section sergeant had usually 1 or 2 team leaders. So I was the section sergeant, I had 2 team leaders, and in that case, I was able to pass that work off to the team leaders, which were 2 E5s, 2 NCOs. Those individuals could go and do the counselings, and I would kind of just check up on them and make sure they were actually doing the counselings with the soldiers. A little bit of luxury in that kind of case, but nonetheless, you still had to work up to that point, right? There was definitely points where I was doing the counselings and that squad leader has to do the counselings, whatever, but that's a pretty common one, whether those are bad counselings because that soldier messed up, they're just monthly counselings, or some other form of counseling for, getting ready to do this or get ready to do that. Sometimes they do marriage counseling ones, not like you're a counselor type of thing, but like, hey, you're about to get married, just be aware you're gonna be receiving extra money. Don't go blowing that money on a Ford Mustang. You need to use some of that money to be able to pay for rent. Those kind of counselings, right? But there's a lot of kind of different forms of counselings that a squad leader will have to do. Squad leaders are also supervisors, right? They're kind of like managers. It's one of the easy ways to kind of look at things. An NCO is kind of like a manager, and specifically a squad leader is like the head of that department, whatever that squad is. Sometimes in certain, platoons, that squad leader might be in charge of, a certain specific thing that platoon does. And then the next squad leader is in charge of like a different thing that platoon does. Or in infantry ones, it may just be different fire teams or whatever the case might be. But what they have to do is supervise, right? Because they are supervisors. So that could be like a very common one of maybe you have vehicles in the motor pool. Squad leaders got to be down there in motor pool, making sure that, the tasks that are supposed to be getting done that day are getting done. If we have to get trucks, looked at and called PMCS in them, looking over the trucks to make sure if there's anything wrong with them, we're annotating that. If we have to get trucks loaded up with equipment, we have to go and clean up this mess that's over here. We have to do this thing over there or whatever. That squad leader isn't going to be the one doing everything. They're going to be tasking out different soldiers. So they're going to supervise. They're going to be like, all right, let me get you over here, you 2 over there, whatever. And they're going to kind of like keep track of that and kind of make sure that, hey, these tasks are getting done over here, this task getting over there. They're going to kind of bounce back and forth and supervise. So that's a pretty common thing. A lot of tasks that have to get done. That squad leader's got to supervise to make sure those tasks are getting done. Report back to the platoon sergeant that, hey, these tasks are done, because that's usually how it's going to come down. Is the platoon sergeant's going to be like, we need this, this, and this, and this, and this done. First squad, you handle this. Second squad, you handle that. And then you guys got to report back to that platoon sergeant and let them know that this task has been accomplished. Another thing that sometimes soldiers hate is that they got to do room inspections, right? That's a thing that kind of sucks in the Army because it doesn't make you feel like an adult, right? You having another adult checking on you to make sure you're keeping your room clean. Maybe in some cases that NCO is maybe younger than you are, older than you are, whatever the case is, but that's a thing that, squad leaders are gonna have to do, is to check on their soldiers in the barracks. That can come in the form of room inspections, or just in simple form of like, hey, I'm gonna come check on you, I'm gonna come stop by in the morning, I'm gonna make sure you're living okay, maybe come knocking on your door before everybody has to be outside for formation type of thing, and do a quick little check. Hey, are you living okay? Do you have trash piled up like mile high going all the way up to the ceiling kind of a thing, or are you maintaining, a decent room? If it's a room inspection, sure, it's gotta be like really nice and clean, everything's gotta be great, but there's other times where a squad leader has to just simply check on their soldiers, right? They're just checking to make sure that, hey, you're living okay. It may not be necessarily a room inspection to where I'm gonna be looking to see, make sure your trash is completely taken out and everything's dust free and everything, but I'm gonna check to make sure you're not living like horribly and there's like clothes just sprawled out all the way across the floor. You got old pizza that's been there for 2 weeks. You got like stuff that looks like it's been spilt on the counter that's been sitting there for several days, nobody's cleaned up. That kind of a thing I'm gonna check for. So that squad leader's role is gonna be to check to make sure young soldiers especially, right, living in the barracks are taking care of themselves. They're not getting all crazy with this, new freedom of being away from their parents and not taking care of themselves because they're used to mom and dad cleaning up after them, and now they're not used to cleaning up for themselves, and so they're just letting everything go to hell. So you gotta check on the barracks. Even if you might have a soldier that's older than you gotta check up on them. How often you're checking up on them? That kind of depends on the unit. A lot of units, don't want you doing it to the extent that you feel like, you're bugging the hell out of the soldier. You should be doing it to make sure they're doing okay. So it might be a thing, maybe like once a week, maybe it's twice a month kind of a thing. When you get into the everyday kind of a realm, that's when it kind of starts to be a little bit kind of, degrading or unmotivating, and usually units don't want you checking up on them every day, but some might still kind of do that thing, but most units are kind of trying to get away from that kind of style of having the squad leaders, having the NCOs every single day bugging the soldiers in the barracks, because it leads to problems. One last role that basically every squad leader in the Army is gonna have to do, they're gonna have to be the middleman or the middle woman. I don't know if that's a term or not, but they have to be that middleman, right? And basically what that means is that a soldier should not be going directly to the platoon sergeant for issues. There can be also a lot of other examples, right? That soldiers should not be going directly to S1 to try to get their pay fixed. They should not be going directly to certain other individuals. They should be going through their leadership, which is usually their first line supervisor. First line supervisor could be the squad leader, could be a team leader. Sometimes it depends on that, but a common one is gonna be the squad leader. So if that soldier happens to notice that, hey, my pay is messed up, I'm supposed to be getting paid this much and I'm not, and I gotta figure out why am I not getting the right amount of pay, then they would bring that issue up to the squad leader, so the squad leader can maybe take them over to S1, because usually most common practice is they don't want just every random soldier just showing up into the offices to get these business handled or whatever. They usually want some kind of leadership to maybe kind of figure it out, maybe try to solve it if they can. If they can't, then they kind of work some kind of thing out to be able to get the problem solved in another way. So in that example, the pay's all messed up kind of a thing. The squad leader is going to probably talk to the soldier, hey, what's messed up? Kind of check it out, see if it's not like a situation where the soldier's just misunderstanding something and they're like, no, this is correct, or they're looking at it and be like, yeah, you should be getting paid that much and you're not, let's go figure this out. So they kind of have to be that middleman to kind of make sure that whatever their problem is a legit problem, not just some misunderstanding, before bringing it up to the other individuals that need to take care of that problem. That could also be a problem with a lot of other things, right? You got a problem with, a soldier in the barracks type of thing. You bring that up to your squad leader then, takes it up with maybe that soldier's, leadership to kind of try to resolve the problem or whatever, but it usually isn't a thing where that soldier is going directly to somebody else's leadership, or that soldier is going directly to, the first sergeant to try to fix an issue. They have to go through the leadership first. The only kind of exception is if their problem is with their squad leader, then yeah, there's other kind of things you can do. You can either kind of bring it up with another squad leader. You can, sometimes a lot of NCOs, like, platoon sergeants, first sergeants, commanders, have what's called an open door policy type of thing. And in those kind of cases, those soldiers can utilize that open door policy when they don't have, trust in their leadership. Maybe the problem is with their leadership and they don't want to bring it up to leadership because nothing's going to probably get done. So they got to kind of jump the chain of command, as it's called, in that case, because the chain of command maybe is the problem, and maybe then it'd be okay, depending on what it is. So certain moments would call for that, but for the most part, for a lot of other issues, you got to bring that up to your squad leader to try to get the issue resolved. So in that case, the squad leader acts as that middleman to kind of mediate things, trying to find the problems, trying to make sure the soldier is getting directed in the right direction to get the problem solved. Viewers out there that have served in the United States Army, maybe currently in the Army, maybe even in the military too, and have served in that role of a squad leader, what was something that maybe you had to do? Something that's pretty common, that not specific to your MOS, but maybe that's pretty common that all squad leaders are going to have to do. I want to hear about that down in the comment section down below. If you have not served in the Army, that's fine. You're not currently in the Army, maybe you're not even interested in joining the Army, and you got some questions about some of this stuff, drop some comments down below. I always appreciate, maybe some questions you have, even if it's off topic, that's fine. It helps out the YouTube algorithm by you just leaving a comment. Hell, just tell me, hey, I love the video, thanks, good job, right? That's cool too. Or ask a question. I wanna hear about it. I wanna hear your questions. I wanna hear your comments. I wanna hear about your day. I don't care. Leave me something down in the comment section, will you? You spent this much time watching the video, might as well comment. And if you can't think of anything, I want to know what's your lucky number. Lucky numbers down in the comment section down below. Mine's 22, and it was actually 22 before the whole 22 movement thing. It was because of Emmitt Smith, but 22 has always been my lucky number. By the way, not a Cowboys fan, go Raiders. But I guess I was a Cowboys fan when I was younger. Nonetheless, thank you so much for coming to hang out and watching this video. Make sure you're liking it, you're subscribing if you're not subscribed, because, oh my God, what are you even doing here if you're not subscribed? Subscribe to the damn channel, all right? Make sure you check out these videos right here because they're amazing. They're gonna just enlighten you and you're gonna feel so satisfied after you're done watching these videos, so check them out. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.